No, Venom, I have not dropped this. Hey everyone, welcome to Princess Gay. I'm your host Connie, and today we are here with episode 3 of Golden Boy. And for those who may be wondering about the cold open, I'm just kind of playing around with Venom, who's the donator for this series, because he was worried that I would drop this because of its content. But while there is kind of precedence for that because there's certain content in here that I'm known to not like in a lot of shows, context matters. And the context of this series is that of a satire. Satire shows can get away with a lot more than other shows tend to be able to. This is because it is done for the purpose of making fun of and, mocking those tropes. You think of stuff like Miss Kobayashi's Dragon Maid and Panty and Stocking and stuff. And it's like these are shows that are clearly not meant to be taken too seriously. They're shows that you can get attached to and you can enjoy, but you're supposed to understand are, you know, playing with these tropes and these ideas that all these other manga and anime tackle in a more serious manner. You see these shows and they're making fun of it. It's over the top, it's purposefully ridiculous. They take it to the extremes and to weird degrees because they're, poking at the actual legitimate and more like intentional shows that do this. And so this is where this kind of stuff doesn't bother me as much. Like, don't get me wrong. Like I said with the last episode, the fact that the girl was like, 17, she was underage and everything, did still give me a feeling of ick. It was still uncomfortable. It wasn't as bad as it would be if this series were trying to like play it seriously, like a lot of shows have done. There's a lot of anime and manga out there where they try to play up this relationship between an underage high school girl and an adult man, and it's really weird and creepy. But you have to know when a series is trying to make fun of that. You have to try to piece together when a series is satirizing that idea rather than trying to portray it in a serious manner. Like, you're not going to watch Great Teacher Onizuka and think like, "Oh, this is like a super serious show that's like, you know, just sexualizing teenage girls and stuff." It's like, "No. GTO is like one of the least serious shows you could watch, but they integrate in these serious messages and themes because they want you to not only laugh at the absurdity of the humor, but actually take something away from it too. And those are the best kind of satires, in my opinion, the best kind of parodies, when they will actually insert unnecessary, mind you, serious moments and tones and ideas and messages in order to, actually give something of value to the viewer, to the reader as well, outside of just, the comedy that's making fun of these kind of tropes. Great Teacher Onizuka does this super well. Dragon Maid does this super well. Golden Boy, not so much so far. Right now, it's just the satire. Um, like, there's some, like, impressive moments of Kintaro, like proving his, intellect and his observational skills and whatnot. You see this last episode with what he wrote in the journal that she found out about. You see this with his sudden computer skills out of nowhere that even he didn't know he could do in episode one. But it's like, it's not really these serious messages or themes or anything that it's touching on. The closest we get, or so far at least, was in episode two when it was like touching on like how the daughter was like kind of living in her father's shadow and was acting out because of that. But it didn't go into that much. It just kind of briefly mentioned it. It was a very sudden thing. So it's not like GTO or Dragon Maid where it actually delves into those kind of themes. Um, it's a different kind of thing, but that's fine. Like I said, I understand the tone and the style and the idea that this series is going for. So as long as it doesn't get like too intentionally weird and creepy, um, where it's like, okay, this is just like a little much even for parody, then I'll be fine with it. And so far, it hasn't gone too far. Like, there are ways it could have gone too far with last episode specifically, but Kintaro again never touched her. He never acted on his feelings, and she was the one who was, pushing him and flirting with him and showing off her, body and everything. She was the one doing it all, and he never acted on it. And like I said, he even mentioned in the journal that he knew why she was doing it, and he felt sad for her. Like, he felt sorry for her, that she was like led down a path where she felt like she needed to do stuff like that. It's like it shows a sense of maturity, and I think she actually described it best. I don't remember her name. That's why I just keep saying she. You know who I'm talking about, though. The girl in episode 2. I think she said it best when she described Kintaro as gentleman pervert. He's a pervert, no question. Like, he absolutely like simps over ladies like it's an Olympic sport. No question. But at the same time, he is a gentleman about it. Most of the time. Like, there are times where he just goes crazy and gets really weird, but most of the time it's like he's not going to act on anything. He's not going to, like, touch a woman without consent. He's not going to be like that weird. He's just a simp. And that's more or less okay. Comparative to how it could be. Like, let's be honest, Sanji from One Piece is worse than him. Let's be completely honest here. Um, but yeah, I just I don't feel like there's been a reason for me to drop this. Like, it's never gotten too uncomfortable to the point of being like unwatchable to me. Because again, the context and the tone makes it clear like what this is supposed to be like. And I'm just I'm glad with how this show handles it. It's over the top in a way that makes it very clear it's not meant to be taken seriously. Like, just with the voice acting alone. I haven't really checked out the sub stuff yet, but the dub voicing is like so ridiculous and over the top for Kintaro, and then for every other character, it's like, oh, did these people ever voice act before? Um, and funny enough, some the girl from last time, like, she's done other big roles like Neon Genesis Evangelion and whatnot. So it's wild that it's like I think I read that it was her first role though, so that could also explain why she sounded so off. But yeah, either way, I'm actually excited to see more of this. I'm interested to see where this goes, and I guess what the next situation Kintaro finds himself in is going to be. So let's check this out and see what we have in store. Hold up just a sec. Before you click that link down in the description below to get to today's video, I want to remind you of all the awesome content we have both on this channel and the Princess of Gaming channel. Let's check it out. And we are back, and we'll begin with spoilers in 3, 2, 1, now. So, Kintaro didn't do anything perverted in this, I noticed. Like, the entire toilet gag that was in the first 2 episodes did not do that. He didn't even really simp over Noriko. Like, you notice that? He didn't simp over her at all. Like, that honestly surprised me. And the funny thing is, the episode title is, like, worded in a way to make you, like, think this is gonna be, like, another, you know, typical thing with Kintaro, where he's gonna be, like, lusting after the girl and everything, Noriko in this case, but no. Like, the title is called Danger, the Virgin's First Love. Why does it mention she's a virgin? I don't think the episode mentioned that once. At least not in the dub. I don't know about the sub, but I don't think it mentioned that. It's maybe implied, but it's never actually directly said. But yeah, it tries to make it sound like more of the tone of, like, the first 2 episodes. I'd say especially the first. But this was by far, like, the least crass and perverted one. Like, really the only perverted scene in this was the scene in the box at the horse track, but that wasn't really, like, portrayed in the same way. That was portrayed as a sexual assault on 2 different levels, because Ugure or whatever his name was, he was assaulting Noriko. She didn't want this. She was actively telling him to stop, but he kept trying to go. And Kintaro was there trying to stop it, but then, you know, he started doing whatever the fuck he was doing to Kintaro on accident, and somehow neither of them noticed. I have no idea how that happened, but yeah, he was trying to assault Noriko, and I mean, he was grabbing at her, like at her breast at first before he was trying to undo her top. So he technically did assault her, and not even technically, he assaulted her. But then he also assaulted Kintaro on accident, interestingly enough. So that's kind of wild too. But that was the only, like, quote-unquote perverted moment of the entire episode. And again, it was an assault. It was expressly shown to be an assault. It was not meant to be taken, like, in any other way. Like, that's very different. It seems like each of these episodes has been less perverted than the last, interestingly enough. The first was by far the most perverted. It by far had the most like the second episode had, like, actual, like, little glimpses of breasts showing and stuff, compared to the first. But the first, in terms of the way that, like, Kintaro was acting and constantly discussing that kind of stuff and acting that way, he was definitely more perverted in episode 1 than 2. Because again, in episode 2, he was avoiding it. He was avoiding Naoko, I think her name was. I saw the name when I was looking up the episode title for this one. But yeah, he was actually avoiding her advances and stuff. So it's interesting that it's actually getting less perverted. I don't know if it's going to keep that up because honestly, I don't know how it could at this point. I feel like it's already kind of reached like the least perverted it could really get. It's just that really caught me off guard with this episode because it's like he's again he never really like simps for Noriko, despite the fact that she's like implied to be a college student. Like it mentions she's taking classes, but it's very clear she's of marrying age. And it's like she's a young college student for sure. Like I don't think she's older than like 20. But it's like it's definitely one of those cases where like I think we see him like blushing toward her a couple times, but like not in like a perverted way. Like he actually treats her pretty respectfully. He finds her attractive, he finds her pretty, but he treats her with respect. And compared to, the first episode, there's almost a little bit of surprise to that. Um like even in the second episode, he was thirsting more over Naoko than he did at all for Noriko here. And so that's just very interesting to me. Um that you never really had a moment like that with this. Instead, he's just like kind of looking out for her and like trying to keep her safe and, you know, taken care of and everything. He just wants like the best for her. He listens to her, he hears her out about her like flower stuff and everything. He helps out, he helps out because the father was hit by a car and he's giving a hand at the noodle shop. And then when Ogoe, or again whatever his name was, I think it's Ogoe or something like that. When he overhears Ogoe like being horrifically shitty and evil and terrible, like his first instinct is not even to run away and tell anyone, but to actually confront the dude. And he confronts him like again at the end and everything, and uses his own martial arts training, which apparently he has. Um, and he punches the shit out of him, which is so satisfying. Because this guy is like as scummy and terrible as you can imagine. He's such a like evil person. Like this other woman is supposed to be like his partner from what we can gather, but he like the way he even talks to her is like horrific. I feel bad for her too, honestly. Like she's probably in it for the money, let's be honest here. The money and the influence and everything that this guy has. The way he's treating even her is just terrible. And it's like it's just a really fascinating take on this all that feels like the same show. It's not that it feels like that different, but it also is like so more serious and like thematic than the first two episodes were. Like it's funny because I just got done in the pre-thoughts talking about like this series being, a parody, a satire. And then you have this episode which is like not. This was like an actually pretty serious episode. Which I mean some satires will do. Some like I did mention I like it when a satire can touch on serious topics, can like touch on more like deep themes and messages. I brought up how Great Teacher Onizuka does this, how Miss Kobayashi's Dragon Maid does this. But I also said in the pre-thoughts, so far, Golden Boy is not that. It's just satire. And then we get this episode just fucking proving me wrong. It's like Thanks, Golden Boy. You're making me look like an idiot out here. No, but I actually do love this. Because a satire taking an episode to touch on a really serious subject like this, like not just sexual assault, but a woman being used as, you know, as a tool by this man to try and get like ownership of the property so he can build a bar there and make more money and stuff. It's like this is the kind of thing like I don't know all the details and I don't know like how big it is, but I've heard stories of things like this happening in not just Japan but the entire world. I've heard a lot of stories about people who will swindle someone into marriage specifically to get their family's property so that they can build off of it, because otherwise they would have no way to get the property. It would be out of their grasp, whether the people just wouldn't sell it, or it's out of their price range or something like that. There's various different reasons, but I've heard of things like this in in Japanese culture as well. Not necessarily this exact thing, but I've heard stories that there's been a lot of times in Japanese culture where women were, treated as tools, treated as objects for men. And there's like even the new game Silent Hill F touches on this kind of thing about the mistreatment and abuse of women in the 60s in Japan. Silent Hill F is like, that's what it's kind of all about. Which we know the Silent Hill games have always like had the deep messages and themes to them. That's kind of their thing. They use horror to like express and tackle these different like scenarios and problems in human condition, in the world, etc., etc. And so here we have kind of not the same thing by any means, but we have a woman being used and abused for someone else's profit. And it's horrific. And this does, again, it happens outside of Japan too. This absolutely still happens here in America. This absolutely happens in Europe. It happens everywhere. In different ways, to different degrees, and all of that, but it does still happen pretty much worldwide. And it's fucked up. Like, we're in 2025, and there's a lot of people who still treat women as objects. And that's fucked beyond belief. And Kintaro, as perverted as he can be, not only stands up for her, but he takes, like, a horrific beating for her, trying to plead with this guy to leave her and her family alone. He gets sexually assaulted by this guy, accidentally, mind you, but it still happens. Because he's trying to protect her from him in that moment where he's, trying to sexually assault Noriko. And in the end, like, he even has to use his martial arts training in a less than, good way in order to protect her. He punches the absolute shit out of this guy. He respectfully, like, protects her here. And it's a very different vibe from the first two episodes. And with this being such a serious topic, it's important that Kintaro wasn't as goofy here. I think it was the right call. Because Kintaro still had some goofy faces and still, like, some goofy voice lines and stuff. But all in all, he was very restrained compared to the first two episodes. And I really appreciate that. Like, you remember episode 2 where Naoko, like, literally threw herself onto him so that her breasts would be cupped in his hands, and you saw his reaction to that, his like over the top reaction. Or the moment in episode 1 where the madam president of the company spits in his mouth, and he spits at him and he catches it in his mouth, and then she stomps him into oblivion, because fuck that shit. But it's like, you don't have a moment like that in this episode. There's no over the top, intense, weird moment like that. It's very serious, and it takes the topic very seriously. But again, it also fits because you still like integrate in the fact that Kintaro is going around taking these odd jobs as he travels around trying to learn stuff and all. So he still has this job that he takes because, again, Noriko's father had been hit by the car, which we didn't, like, it wasn't said, my theory, I guess, was wrong. It wasn't said that, like, Ogoe, like, planned that or, like, had that happen. It seems like he was just an opportunist who stepped in after the fact. He was probably in the area and, like, saved the father because it's like, oh, this works out in my favor. It didn't like confirm my theory that he had actually set that all up. That would have been insane. And it even says like they had only been doing this for weeks, like the weeks he had been injured. So yeah, but even so, even if this was just like a spur of the moment idea, maybe he wanted the property ahead of time, but still. It's just so vile, the kind of shit he was doing. And it's just, ugh. I just hate it so much. But to touch on this kind of topic, it's like this, again, it still felt very much like Golden Boy with like the voice acting and everything. And I actually want to check something. Golden Boy episode 3 dubcast. I want to specifically look because I thought Ogoe sounded kind of familiar. And I want to see if I know him at all. Okay, so Noriko, by the way, was Kim Sevier. Who was also in Neon Genesis Evangelion. Wow, I guess this series was a stepping stone for that series. She was in a Dirty Pair OVA. A Fire Emblem OVA, apparently. Looks like she was only active in the 90s from what I'm seeing here, though. Yeah, only active from 96 to 99. Let me try to find Ogoe or whatever it was. Kogure. Kogure's girlfriend is listed here. Tiffany Grant was the VA there. Who, again, is in Neon Genesis Evangelion. She was Asuka. Also, Nojiko in One Piece. Okay. But I'm not seeing Kogure here. I see Kogure's girlfriend, but not Kogure. He was like the one I was specifically like trying to look up here. Let me look on the behind the voice actors. Oh, Tiffany Grant was also Madam President. Oh. Da, 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 da. The random employees from episode 1. Oh, that's funny. The voice actor who played the bicycle shop man in episode 2 looks just like him. Like just like him. Just he's wearing glasses as well. That's really funny though. Okay, here we go. Hiroshi Kogure was Tristan McAvery. Oh, he was Gendo in Neon Genesis Evangelion. Again, everyone in this was in Evangelion. But do I know him from anything else? Okay, apparently he was in New Cutie Honey, but we reacted to Re Cutie Honey. So that's a different one. It seems like he also only acted. Oh, he was also Juzo Katsuda's voice in episode 2. The dad? Oh, okay. Maybe I was just recognizing him from that because I don't think I'd recognize him for Gendo. But also, by the way, it looks like he hasn't acted since like Neon Genesis Evangelion. Specifically, the most recent role he has credited is the end of Evangelion from 2002. Okay. That's just very interesting. I'm learning a lot here. But yeah, this episode was definitely the best one so far in terms of just what it had to say and everything. Obviously, it wasn't as funny, it wasn't as like ridiculous, but it was definitely extremely well done. And so, I'd love to hear what you think, though. Tell me in the comments below what are your thoughts on episode 3 of Golden Boy. And for now, I'm Connie and I'm signing off. See y'all next time.